Okay, it is time to go over the questions that patrons had in the last month of April. And I want to start off by saying that there's been a tier change. In April, you had to be a $5 patron in order to ask a question. In order to try and get some more questions in, I've dropped that down to the $3 tier. So $1 and $2 tiers are basically the same. The $3 tier is now for the AMA, and you can use the links below to ask a question for the month of May, and it just costs you $3. The $5 tier is now for shout-outs. So if you want me to shout out your channel or someone else's channel or website or whatever, anything you think might be good or interesting for people to know about or something you want to promote, just become a $5 patron and let me know. Now, I am going to draw the line that I'm not going to do natural news or anything like that. Anything that's unethical or fraudulent or anything like that, I'm going to politely deny that and tell you to come up with something else. But I thought that would be interesting to try and see what different things that people are willing to recommend for $5 a month. That's not that much for a shout out, I don't think. I was looking on, what's it called? Social Blue Book, one of those sites. And it said that a shout out on my channel is actually worth $20. I have no idea if that's true or not. It sounds a bit high to me, so we'll see what we get for $5. But anyway, that's the new tiers. But we'll go over the questions for April. Starting on Subscribestar with Wouter Voss. It's very sad that the more misery government creates, the more power many people want it to have. With COVID-19, regulation has crippled the healthcare system and its ability to respond. That happened long before COVID-19. Could you compile a list of all the ways government does this? It would help in arguing against people calling for government power. I think that would be impossible because it would be a list 50 miles long. So just answering this as quickly as I possibly can. Check out my videos, How to Argue for Universal Healthcare and How to Fix Healthcare Without Spending a Dime. And I think those two cover a lot of the ways that our government is really being obstructionist. Also, check out Mary Ruart's book, Healing Our World. I believe this is the 4th edition. But I mean, it's just really good. There's a lot of good things about it. She was a pharmaceutical researcher with Upjohn for something like 20 years, and she saw a lot of this obstructionism firsthand, and she covers a lot of that in the book. The book covers a lot of stuff other than medicine as well, but it's probably, in the field of healthcare, it's probably the best libertarian book that I've seen, at least, that covers that. So check that out. That should be enough to get you going in, I think, pretty much any conversation you're going to be in, because, I mean, of course, a lot of this is going to be Pratt. They're just going to say the same thing over and over again. Well, we need the FDA to do all of this to make sure that people don't die. Well, as Ruart points out, by being obstructionist and by insisting on efficacy, the FDA has actually killed more people than they can claim to have saved by withholding medicines that could have saved their life. If it takes an additional 5 years to come to market, and during those 5 years, there are thousands of people that medicine would have saved, that should be on the FDA. It really should. So, and there's something else I think that I don't remember if this is covered in the book or not, but it's something that I've seen a lot of. I think Dr. Ben Goldacre has pointed this out, and some others. The current setup is really for about 2 types of treatments. There's what the pharmaceutical industry calls one drug, one bug. Okay, you've got some kind of condition or disease or something like that. Oh, we have a drug for that. Here you go. Here's a pill. Swallow it. The other is like a many-to-one instead of a one-to-one. Oh, you've got this condition. Well, here are 2 or 3 drugs that work together to cure it. What we really don't have is the ability to develop one-to-many drugs. Think about antibiotics. I mean, if Alexander Fleming had discovered penicillin today, he'd never been able to get it through the FDA. Because, the FDA was like, okay, well, you have to do strep throat. You have to prove that it works strep throat. Okay, now it's just available for that one treatment. You wouldn't be able to say, hey, look, this works against all sorts of bacteria, all sorts of infections. Surgeries, as we know it, would not be possible without antibiotics. But it's a problem because now it's so difficult to get truly new novel antibiotics tested with the FDA. The new ones that are coming out are kind of just modifications of the existing ones. But as these different bacteria, as they start developing different ways of getting around this and becoming immune to the antibiotics, becoming resistant to them, that's going to be a problem, because what happens in 30 years from now if all of these different bacteria are resistant to the antibiotics and we can't do surgeries anymore? So we need that. And we also, I think COVID-19 has shown us that we really do need broad-spectrum antivirals. It's not that such a thing isn't possible. It's more difficult because there are all sorts of different viruses, but like if we had a drug or 2 or 3 that worked against single-stranded RNA viruses like COVID-19, we could have stopped it in its tracks. I mean, it would even be a cure for the common cold, because the common cold is generally either a rhinovirus or a coronavirus, and those are single-stranded RNA viruses. So, yeah, they're inhibiting the cure for the common cold. That's what it is. And you might have to do different ones for DNA viruses or whatever. We already have good antiretrovirals because of AIDS, but the rest of them just, we need the more broad-spectrum treatments, because we don't know what the next pathogen is going to be. This is all about, here's a disease that already exists, let's find a treatment for it, not about, hey, how do we stop the next one? So that can be a real problem. And also, of course, by obstructing the testing. South Korea did it right because they screwed up when MERS went through and basically did what we're doing here with the FDA and the CDC, of just really, really putting the screws on testing and restricting all of those. So what they did when COVID-19 came through is that, okay, just go ahead and test people with this unapproved test, and then we'll go back and check out those tests later on to see how effective they are. And I mean, that worked like gangbusters. Everyone's saying, well, look at South Korea. It's like, okay, let's look at South Korea. They relied on the private sector to do it. It wasn't government healthcare that did it. It was government healthcare stepping back and say, okay, you do your thing, and we'll check it out later. So all sorts of things. Now, I don't think there is any possible way someone could compile a list of all of that, because there are just so many. There's so many. Reason.com might also be a good place to look as well. I'll see if I can find a good search, or maybe a few good articles on Reason about the FDA. And the war on drugs as well. We've also talked about the war on drugs inhibiting things like painkillers. So anyway, that should get you going at least. Okay, Scorch 88. With the new research that has been shown to keep unborn alive in an artificial womb, that is incredibly preliminary. Right now, it's not. I don't even know if it's available for even the real emergency situations. But the technology is improving. It's going to come at some point. Soon you will be able to safely remove the unborn. Do you think this will change the abortion stance now that you don't have to end the life of the unborn to have full body autonomy? Yeah, I mean, the principle behind it is it's the woman's body and she has a right to expel the invader. So, like, if there's a blizzard and someone comes into your house seeking shelter, everyone pretty much agrees you have the right to kick them out. You'd be a jerk if you did, and no one would like you for it. But legally, it would be your right to do it because it's your house, even though, in all probability, he's going to die. So that's what abortion is about. It's about the woman saying, I don't want this, get it out of me. Well, like, if we had a complete science fiction scenario where you could teleport the baby into an artificial womb and there would be no side effects to the mother or anything like that, then yeah, I think everyone would be behind that. It's like, yeah, let's just do that. But there are several realities that we'll have to deal with. Taking the baby out of the womb to put it in this artificial womb, every surgical procedure has risks. So what kind of risk is that to the mother compared to the risk of a traditional abortion procedure? That's not nothing. This is the woman's body we're talking about. So, that would be one issue. Another issue is, I think, we really need to do something about the adoption issues, because they talk about, all of these parents who are lined up waiting to adopt children. Well, they want to adopt healthy white infants. They don't want to adopt, the 2-year-old or the 6-year-old black kid from the inner city. So what do we do about that? Well, you get the government out of it and you marketize it. All right, so think about this. The ones who want the nice, healthy, newborn babies, there's a high demand and a low supply, so why don't you have them pay for it? Okay, and I mean, that would be a good way to say, yes, we are really dedicated to raising this baby and we're willing to put this money into it. And they'd be competing with all the other parents about that. But if they couldn't afford it, or if there weren't enough to go around or whatever, you could pay less or even for free, take that black kid from the inner city and at least give them a good home. By not marketizing it, you just screw all of that up, and then people go, well, that's selling babies. Well, it's not like you're selling them into slavery. Come on, we're talking about being adopted into loving homes here. Don't even try to pull that. So that's one thing they say. But another thing, I think, if that's going to be the case, then the mother who's giving up the child for adoption, well, I mean, she deserves a cut of that at least. I'm sure there are expenses that the adoption agencies would have. But if you had it to where, okay, you abort the fetus and then you get nothing, or, we transplant the child into an artificial womb and then you'll get some of the money from the adoption, that would actually incentivize women to go to the artificial womb route and stop it that way. I mean, we could probably discuss all day the technical details and the side effects and the practicalities of all that. But I think just on a basic, more principled level, doing that kind of marketization would really be a good way to handle that. Okay, let's go over to Patreon and see what we got going over here. We got 2 from Josh Havens. Normally I say 1 a month, and so the second one he says you can ask it next month, but there was only 3 others, so we'll go ahead and do this, and it's an important one anyway. But the first one he says, how would we deal with a pandemic in an Ancap society? I think we're already seeing that by and large. The social separation stuff is stuff that by and large has happened because we've all said, okay, yeah, we need to do this. And the government has actually had very little to do with it. All the lockdowns and everything happened since the social separation, and I think it's just another case of government jumping in front of a parade and pretending to lead it. But, with all of the attention that COVID-19 has gotten, and all of the technologies about being able to work from home and being able to do, conferencing online instead of having to, all get in the same room around a conference table and things like that. And all of the technology that makes that happen and all of the companies that went into developing the apps and everything. If this had happened in the 1980s, I'm not sure how we would have handled it. Because, you couldn't telecommute back then. There was no sense of, oh, well, I'll just, fire up a webcam and get on the way. No, you couldn't do it. But by the 80s and certainly the early 90s, we'd gotten used to just you get on a plane and you go places. You get in your car and you go places and you go into conference rooms. So if this had happened in the 80s and people couldn't go to work, that would have been a far bigger economic disaster than what we have today with the technology. So, no, Gavin Newsom, we don't need you to close down the beaches. I just covered that in the latest Bogosity podcast. And there's just crazy stuff like that the government's doing. And they're getting a lot of pushback for it, which is another problem with putting government in charge of things. So, and also, as I said earlier, if we were in Ancap society and we had been in an Ancap society, then we probably would have broad spectrum antivirals and we could have stopped this thing in its tracks. So I can't think of any way this would have been worse. Not that things are terrible. I don't think it's the end of the world. I don't think it's the bubonic plague. But if we had had a truly free society, where we could have been free to investigate and test and treat and do all of these things, then we'd be much better off than we are now. All right, so Josh's other question. What is the safest way to connect and open up a USB thumb drive that may have malware installed on it, especially one that has an autorun file pointing to the malware. The safest way is not to do it. Okay? Stick the thing in the microwave, pour lighter fluid on it and set it ablaze. Kill it with fire. That's what you want to do. And if it's a question of, these are my only copy of these necessary files, well, first of all, you should have had a backup. But we'll assume that you're in this situation now. What can you do to be as safe as possible? Well, the first thing is you don't want it running on anything that even remotely resembles Windows. And so basically that means running Linux of some kind. The best thing to do, and I'll put a link to this below, is Tails OS. And Tails OS is designed to boot from a USB stick, and it just boots up. It doesn't make any changes to itself. It doesn't mount any of your drives, so don't mount them manually. Wine isn't installed on it, so don't install it manually because that can run Windows stuff, and that's what we're trying to avoid. And I think the thing you need to understand is even if it can't run the Windows malware directly, it can be a carrier. So I would boot up from Tails and not mount anything. I wouldn't even connect to the network. Okay, if it's my desktop, I'd probably do it on my desktop machine and then yank the cable out in the back and physically air gap it because I don't have a Wi-Fi adapter on my desktop. Now, if your only choice is a laptop or something else that has Wi-Fi, generally there's a switch or something to manually turn it off and do that. At the very least, you can go into the network settings and disconnect from the network. And then put it in and then see if you can copy the files to a clean USB stick. And you might even want to check out the files themselves because from the question, it sounds like you're worried about separate malware on there that's going to auto-run. But if it's been infected, then those files might have been infected as well. So check them out. If there are any Word files, then pull them up in something like OpenOffice and just check them out. Make sure there are no macros in them or anything like that. Make sure the text files are just text files. Image files, you might want to run them through a converter and convert them so you know that they're safe and there's nothing hidden in them that's going to do that. Pays to be paranoid in a case like that. So then you do that and you get all the files off. Now they're on actually you're copying them off now into Tails on a RAM disk. Right? So if your computer goes down now, then it'll be lost because RAM is lost, but that's part of the magnificence of Tails. So you've copied these off, you reformat it, and I would actually, it shouldn't survive a reformat, I wouldn't think, but even so, I would probably, these are cheap. USB drives are cheap. Discard it, grab another one, make sure it's a clean format, move the files over to it, and then when you shut down Tails, anything that might have gone into RAM would be cleared out. So if I absolutely had to get them back, then that's what I would do. But just be careful about it every step of the way. I absolutely would do an actual boot from a USB disk as opposed to trying to run it inside a virtual machine because those things can escape the virtual machine. So just a clean boot with Tails and make sure everything's cleaned off. Make sure do everything you can to make sure that the files are actually safe. Just get the files you need. Check them out while you're in Tails. Do whatever kind of converting or anything else you need to do to blow out any viruses that might be in there. So just be careful about it. Be really careful about it. That's the case where you really want to be paranoid. And just in general, if you find a USB drive just lying around, on a park bench or on the ground somewhere, the temptation is to go, oh boy, this is great. I'm going to see what's on this. Not a good idea. And a lot of people do this just out of altruism because they say, hey, this person might have something important on it. They want it back. I want to see if I can figure out who it is and get it to them, get their email or something. But you stick it in and turns out that hackers do this. They will put malware on just a whole bunch of USB keys and just kind of discard them around like in parking lots or somewhere. This was depicted in Mr. Robot, but it actually does happen. That's actually how Stuxnet got into that Israeli nuclear power plant. Not Israeli, Iranian nuclear power plant. Yeah, because people are like, hey, look, a USB drive, I'm going to plug it and see, and then you're lost, so. Alright, well, that's all for this month. Again, it's just $3 to be a patron for next month, so thanks again to everyone who asked a question. Thanks to everyone who supported me, which you can do at donate.bogosity.tv. Thank you all for watching, and until next time, stay strong and be free.